After a failed attempt to return Guinea-Bissau to democratic rule through the polls on November 23, 2025, the country's military authorities have intensified pressure on the Fourth Estate, the media. Repression is deepening, press freedom is shrinking, and dissenting voices are increasingly being silenced.
Civic.
All the programs that don't need to be monitored and targeted, they don't temporarily suspend, but they didn't continue working. At the information level, they weren't working with the same workload, but at the program level, I noticed that the usual signal didn't drop drastically because of the pressures, and fear continued. Why there isn't that horrible spirit to put on, still having anonymous messages from people threatening journalists, and the will to serve is higher in relation to what the threat of the moment might be.
Na ameaça jornalistas, mas vontade de servir está mais alta em relação àquilo que pode ser ameaças de momento.
WADR's partner station Capital FM is among the many private media outlets suspended by the military junta, ostensibly to regularize their annual operating licenses. Capital FM and Somansi Radio were shut down after failing to meet a 5 million CFA francs regulatory fee imposed by the authorities as a condition for continued operation from January 5, 2026. Media rights advocates say the move appears deliberate, aimed at weakening independent journalism and restricting critical reporting.
We have seen also when the coup happened that they have suspended all the media outlets for 3 days. That has created a lot of difficulties in terms of, advertisement and so on and so. And then the many journalists and media executives we spoke to, they have seen on this as a call for self-censorship, and they were fearing a kind of news control that has been imposed as, what is happening in other Sahelian countries like in Mali and Burkina Faso, the patriotic news coverage. Solman C and Capital FM to get ready to pay or regularize their license fees, which is amounting to 5 million CFA. But for us as a press freedom organizations, our fear is that the economic environment in Guinea-Bissau doesn't allow to any media to pay the yearly license.
This is not the first time Capital FM has come under attack. In 2020 and again in 2023, the station was targeted by uniformed men amid political tensions, leading to damaged equipment and prolonged disruptions to broadcasting. Since then, the station has struggled to remain on air under mounting pressure.
When Capital FM has information, there are contradictory people always looking for someone to prove it true. So it's up to us not to do justice to ourselves, but only out of responsibility or the right to inform. And it's up to listeners who are interested in relationships and, above all, ask for what is right between both sides or not, and that group of others who want to report. So I'm just summarizing here as a journalist. At every moment that I do my work, freedom of expression is very behind. To be honest, it's very behind in my mission.
Media ownership and its influence on content dissemination are increasingly evident in Guinea-Bissau, while some outlets like Capital FM insist that they serve the public interest by promoting accountability and free expression. Others believe free speech must be guided and regulated by the state to protect public interest and safety.
Radio stations are owned by private individuals and politicians. For example, our Radio Africa is a radio station that is commissioned by a consortium of a group of journalists. The journalists who work with this radio station, they receive content, and nobody ever interferes with the internal content of the radio. Unlike other media outlets, we've referred to radio stations in the capital. For those who are far away and are wondering what it's like, that radio is attacked by authorities, by politicians, and whoever else. We didn't see any content being broadcast at that time. But for political journalists, we can confront the political class itself, right? Issues, as they say, of politics. If you follow this line of research, if you gather information from the center, you avoid insults and direct attacks. But whoever comes with an attack, they are going to get beaten up. If the attack is from them, you can attack them too. So, journalists can work in a context of peace, of harmony with the political class. Otherwise, it's strictly no work. So, journalists, if they follow their job, if they follow the rules of their job, you will hardly have a problem. But the most serious issue is that some journalists are misled. That's the nature of the work that leads to this confrontation with the political process.
Se tudo rádio seguir linha com a nossa nota seguir, tanto que não tem problema com ninguém, porque nós nunca não atacamos ninguém, nunca não insultamos ninguém.
As the current military junta, led by General Horta Inta-A, plans to govern for a proposed one-year transition, civil society groups and ordinary citizens are pushing back, using the media to denounce the transition and demand a return to constitutional rule. The plight of Capital FM reflects a broader trend of growing suppression of press freedom in military-led states across West Africa and the continent, where independent media increasingly operate under threat, restriction, and intimidation.